That was a lot of information.
Yeah, well, when we started this process, we thought this would be a quick thing, or at least Henry thought it was. I thought it was going to be monumental.
It was monumental. Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
Today we're going to expand a little bit more on our series on gardening for beginners and people who aren't maybe beginners as well. We'll be talking about sources of information for gardening, and we're going to talk about mistakes. And Irene's going to tell you a little story about something that happened recently to her.
Yeah, one of the plants that I've been trying to grow.
You don't have to make all the mistakes yourself in order to learn from them. Okay, one of the things that's really important is you can get really involved as a new gardener, beginning gardener, or an old hand at gardening. You can really start digging into an awful lot of research papers, a zillion different kinds of theories about how to garden. But you know what? I'm not writing a dissertation.
No, and if I was, I wouldn't use some of the resources that I have on my shelf. And the reason I say that is when we were first married, which was like 1974.
It was exactly 1974, actually.
Yeah, we lived in New Mexico at the time, and I was able to get free brochures from the New Mexico Extension Service that had stuff on canning and gardening and all kinds of stuff like that. And I found my copy of the gardening brochure the other day.
Oh my Lord.
I would say that 3/4 of the chemicals and things that are in there have been outlawed federally. So, I would never use that as a resource. I kind of keep it because, I just can't quite throw it away. I've had it for all these years. But I certainly would never recommend that people use something like that. And if you're getting picky and you're trying to do some real research, check the date of the research. I found some reports that Louisiana State University had left up. Now, nothing against Louisiana State University. I know they do a lot of good work.
They have some really good work.
However, this was old stuff that should have been pulled down. And I just happened upon it, and I read some of the stuff and went, oh, I don't think so. I mean, it was super heavy chemicals, super heavy this, super heavy that. I was just horrified. And then I looked at the date on it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's the 1970s. Okay? So make sure that if you're reading research from a university, because a lot of these universities provide all kinds of amazing help. Usually if you go to their current master gardener sites, that's the place to be, because that's going to be current stuff, and they're going to be acknowledging the fact that not everybody wants to go heavy chemicals. They're going to be acknowledging organic stuff and all that other sort of thing, and it's going to be a much more progressive view. Lots and lots of very good, very helpful information on identifying diseases and deficiencies and all that kind of stuff. But make sure your information is current. The number of people, I see it all the time on websites and on YouTube things and everything. Well, my grandma used to do it that way and none of us died. Awesome. But don't tell me I should can in an oven. Just not going to do it. Could I do it safely with jams and jellies that are completely high sugar? Yeah. But a lot of people today are making low sugar stuff or substitute sugar stuff, and there's no way that's going to be safe.
The big thing is we're advocating start simple gardening with some simple, robust plants.
Right.
We're using spinach and radishes.
They're both pretty tough.
And they're very fast to mature. That's one of the real reasons why we chose those.
But they're also tough. If you look at a radish cross-eyed, it's not going to fall over and die. Whereas there are some seedlings that are very tender and very easily damaged.
I encourage people to learn as fast as they can, which means make as many mistakes as quickly as they can. There's the mistakes that you only can make when you're doing it yourself. Have we made any mistakes in the last 15 years, Irene?
Oh, a bazillion of them. I quit counting.
Yeah, we've been gardening, each of us separately, probably for over 60 years.
Yeah.
Now, my mother was a master gardener. She was a horticultural judge, and a lot of the people that you read about now were people who were contemporaries of my mother's, or just beginning when my mother was actively engaged in this. So I was exposed to a lot of those people a long, long time ago. They made mistakes. My mother made mistakes. We've made mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. So just accept that fact and try not to make ones that are going to kill an entire crop.
Right. Well, here's an excellent one. One of the things I adore is black-eyed Susans. I have tried multiple times to get black-eyed Susans into my garden. My grandmother had black-eyed Susans, and I loved them. They were one of my favorite things when I was a little bitty kid. To see those cheerful flowers that lasted in her garden so much of the time, sometimes at a time of year when there wasn't a lot else blooming, because they often bloom towards the end of the summer when a lot of things are kind of burned out. And since that sort of burned out thing is kind of describes our summers here, it seemed like a good idea. Well, first thing I bought some roots and thought that would work good.
Nope.
They didn't even sprout. It was garbage. I bought it from a big box store and they had not been handled properly. Well, there you take your chances. Then I bought some seeds. I'm like, I know how to handle seeds. And I planted them, and I did not get a single bit of germination.
Not one seed.
No, and I read the package exactly. Well, I got another package of seeds this year. And you know the first thing it said on my package of seeds?
What?
It said, these require stratification.
What's stratification?
Stratification is when you let the seed think it's going through a winter. So if you think about seeds in a normal environment on a plant, the plant flowers, the plant goes to seed, the seeds fall on the ground, and then if you're in a cold climate, they go through a winter sitting out there on the ground somewhere, or on the plant, because some plants don't drop until spring. And now that seed knows that it's been through winter, and it goes, okay, as soon as things are right in the spring, I'm going to go. Well, some seeds will not germinate worth a darn. So in my our cheese drawer currently has several packages of seeds in it. Of course, there's bulbs in one of the vegetable drawers too, but that's because we couldn't plant them. I had no idea that they were one of the flowers that needed stratification.
How long have you been gardening?
My first memories of when I was gardening was like I was like 3 or 4. So it's been a long time. And nobody ever mentioned it. My grandmother probably had gotten cuttings for hers. They were always there, so they were established years before I never saw anybody transplant. I never saw anybody plant. It was just one of those things that people had in their yards because it's an old-fashioned flower. So I had no idea why I was failing. And I had started to do some heavy research this year because I was like, okay, stratification, or the lack thereof, can be a major fail for a lot of different seeds that grow pretty much on their own, very tough things. So I started doing some research and discovered a couple of other things that I wanted to grow also would probably respond well to chilling, so they're in the drawer too, in the fridge.
Yeah, the refrigerator's being taken over by seeds and bulbs and roots and
all kinds of stuff. But that's okay. They'll go out in the next couple of months, and then we'll have space, the final frontier. So we, I've been growing a long time, and I got snookered on that one. Nobody told me. Nobody hinted at it. If I was a seed company and I wanted people to succeed, no pun intended, I would definitely put that information on the back of my packet. People are going to be annoyed if they try and grow something and it doesn't work. Right? You've put all your effort in, you've done everything they said to do, and nowhere on there does it say throw this in the fridge for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's got a better chance of performing.
Now, stratification is closely aligned with what you might also hear sometimes, especially when it comes to fruit trees, and that's chill hours or chill days. Mm-hmm. If you're a beginner gardener, this isn't really important for you right now. But
as long as you're buying locally.
As long as you're buying locally. But, one of the things is that you want to learn about this eventually. It's not important for today, but it will be eventually if you continue going on.
If you're in a town and you go to a local garden center, they're probably only going to sell varieties that are going to work there.
To be more specific, we don't suggest going to a big box store.
Unless you know what you're doing.
As a general rule for new gardeners, if you're going to buy something locally, we would suggest going to a nursery that grows their own stock.
Or at least brings in stuff that's appropriate to the environment.
It's really good if you can find a nursery that also has a landscaping business associated with it, because the landscaping business doesn't want to have stuff die when they set it out.
They want to be able to guarantee to their customers that assuming it's watered, it's going to do well. And we have seen instances before, because of the issue of altitude where we live, where people have gone down to one of the big box stores that's only, 25, 30 miles away, 40 miles away, actually.
How about 50 miles away?
Right. Well, but we think of this as nothing because that's where everything is. It's 50 miles away. But it's a different climate zone there. Well, we hope you find this useful and interesting, and hopefully, even if you're a more advanced gardener, it will have taught you something you didn't know before.
Well, you learned something new this year.
I sure did. I learned something new just about every year. I mean, there's just so much out there. And the area of the country that I've gardened in before we moved here is very different than here. So every place you live will have its own thing. Sometimes listening to somebody else, can give you some insights.
Yeah, and every once in a while you say, I knew that. Why didn't I do it that way?
Right, or it'll encourage you to go look something up and you go, oh, geez, now I know what's wrong. And that happens to everybody. Everybody I know, and that includes people who have, like PhDs and stuff like that. They get snookered too, so.
We better stop talking, because otherwise we'll end up with another couple of hours of...
Yeah, no, we have other stuff to do, and other people do too. So, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because we're going to be doing lots more.
And you know what? We're going to give you tomorrow off. We'll do a different video tomorrow, and we'll continue this series next week. Thanks for watching. We'll talk with you later.
Bye.
Bye.